Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Great to see you on this Tuesday out there, and we've got a lot to discuss in today's video, including a very high impact storm on the way for much of the East Coast. And as we get closer to this storm system, I'm growing increasingly concerned for the chances of power outages for a lot of folks, as all of our models are beginning to hint at a very dynamic system with severe weather, very snowy conditions in some places, very rainy conditions in others, and really just a whole lot of wind for a lot of Americans. So again, this is going to be a very dynamic storm that will have to break down over the next couple of days right before it arrives, but models in a lot more agreement this morning on who is going to see exactly what impact. So again, going to break all of that down in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so, and like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know what you're seeing out there this morning. Some folks actually seeing some snow right now, and that will continue this afternoon, and we also have to talk about that because we got some snow coming to some places pretty far south this evening and overnight tonight. So we'll break all that down in today's video. With that said, let's go ahead and get right to the maps. So we'll start off with satellite imagery here, taking a look at our water vapor loop across the continental United States. And overall, a bit of a complicated picture this morning. So we do have this kind of clipper-like system that is beginning to work through the Ohio River Valley that will eventually exit out the southeastern coastline over the next couple of hours into this afternoon and evening. Now, this system's already bringing some light rain and snow through sections of the Ohio River Valley. I talked about that in yesterday's video, and sure enough, we're seeing some of that. So if you're out in Ohio this morning, Indiana, Kentucky, maybe West Virginia, let me know what you're seeing. Are you seeing some rain, some snow, maybe a little bit of both, depending on where you're at? Definitely in the comments. Again, let me know what exactly is falling in your neck of the woods. Now, outside of that, we do have a big kind of plume of moisture going up into the Pacific Northwest. That actually isn't even really part of our next system. That's kind of a precursor, if you will, part of the overall flow, but not the energy that's going to be associated with our next storm necessarily. So, kind of interesting there. All right, so now taking a look at radar and active alerts and warnings out there. Again, this is that precipitation falling through much of the Ohio River Valley. I checked out the MPing reports on that, and again, we are getting some reports of some light snow here in southern Ohio this morning. So again, if you're out there, let me know. Probably also maybe some snow out near Chicago, although looking at radar here, this kind of lighter, fluffier colors on radar is more likely snow than anything else. So again, very interesting there. Now, the other thing you'll notice on your map, we do have some winter weather advisories up and down the Appalachian chain from extreme western Maryland all the way down towards the Smoky Mountains, from Boone, North Carolina, all the way back down towards kind of the Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina tri-point there. So again, a lot of people are going to see some snow overnight tonight, especially if you're above 3,000 feet in elevation. And if you're above 5,000 feet in elevation, then you're really likely going to see some snow overnight tonight, and even starting as soon as the day today. So let's go ahead and break that down for you now. Let's kind of take a look at future radar over the next 48 hours or so, and just give you a general time and idea of what we're expecting. So if you're not familiar, I never mentioned this in the video, but the time is up here on the top right. I know a lot of times I can start talking and maybe not mention what exact time frame we're looking at here, but top right of your screen there, that shows local time. So I think that's probably on East Coast time there. So if you're in Central time, give or take an hour here, but either way, the time's up there. So going through this afternoon, again, here's that clipper-like system bringing some rain and snow through the Ohio River Valley through much of the morning hours today and even into the afternoon hours. So it's going to be a tough call. Some of this is going to be rain for some folks. Some of this is going to be snow. If you're in the higher elevations, though, likely snow, especially out here towards West Virginia, where this afternoon that snow is going to be cranking up in those higher elevations again, especially 3,000 feet and above, but some snow even mixing in there in those lower elevations as well. As we go through the afternoon, through much of the state of Ohio, Indiana, any precipitation that's still falling likely changing back over to rain as we warm up a little bit this afternoon. But sections north of there, we could get a little bit of some influence off the Great Lakes out of this clipper system. So we could see a band of snow kind of setting up here through Pennsylvania, southern New York State, seeing some snow through much of this afternoon. And we'll definitely watch the trends on that. But it's going into overnight tonight that that northwest flow really begins to kick in here. And look at all of this precipitation, kind of combining with the Great Lakes and this Clipper system. We've got widespread blue on the map here from the North Carolina mountains all the way up the chain, and even some scattered snow showers up into the interior northeast from New York State and into Pennsylvania. Now, going through the overnight hours, that snow continues to crank away. Maybe even some overnight snow showers in a place like Boston wouldn't surprise me all that much. Again, scattered snow showers all night in the northeast with more prolonged periods of snow in those higher elevations of the Appalachians from, again, about West Virginia on south through North Carolina. Now, by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, that snow likely still falling, still scattered snow showers through much of the Ohio River Valley up through the northeast. And again, we'll have to watch. Maybe a place like Boston gets kind of a little lucky and sees even more snow as that storm system that's pulling off the coast still having enough precipitation left over that we could very well get a surprise dusting to an inch of snow overnight in a place like Boston, maybe even through Rhode Island. So if you're up in that area, definitely watching out for that, kind of sneaking up on us a little bit here. Going into our Wednesday afternoon here, the I guess good news, maybe bad news if you're a snow lover, is that snow begins to kind of taper off a little bit throughout the day Wednesday. Still some scattered light snow showers and flurries through the mountains of North Carolina and West Virginia, and still a little bit of lake effect induced snow through Pennsylvania and New York. But that begins to die down before going into the early morning hours of Thursday. We get another storm system, another kind of clipper flying out of Canada here. This one also could bring some light snow showers or even moderate potentially in places through sections of upstate New York, through the Catskills up there. The Finger Lakes may be seeing some of that snow as well. And that timing on that likely looks Thursday morning and even through the day on Thursday. That system will kind of swing on through. So, honestly, a pretty snowy period here for much of the East Coast over the next couple of days, and that's also going to bring with it some cooler temperatures. So you'll notice as we go through the next couple of days into overnight tonight and into tomorrow, those blues take over, and sure enough, we're back to well below average temperatures for our Wednesday and Thursday up and down the East Coast from Florida all the way up to Maine, and as far west there as kind of Kentucky, Ohio, and even Louisiana, getting in on these below average temperatures through much of the next couple of days. But don't fret, because by the time we hit Friday, we're right back to above average temperatures as that storm system begins to develop, that big one we've been talking about. So very interesting there. Alrighty, so kind of looking at snowfall totals here. Well, how much exactly are we expecting? I think through the mountains of West Virginia, those higher peaks, still a good 3 to 5 inches of snow likely to fall there. Maybe isolated spots hitting half a foot up towards 8 inches, especially on those really high peaks. Again, if you're above about 5,000 feet, you could crack half a foot of snow out of this system. Down for the North Carolina mountains, really honestly about the same story, very elevation driven, between about 3,000 and 5,000 feet, likely about 3 inches of snow, upwards of 5. Valleys kind of lower than there, about 2,000 feet, maybe an inch of snow out of this system. But again, once you get on those really high peaks, especially those ones facing the northwest, half a foot of snow, upwards of 8 to 10 inches, not out of the question. Also want to mention on this map, again, don't forget this afternoon we could get some prolonged periods of snow up into Pennsylvania and New York State out of some of that lake effect. Could see 1 to 3 inches of snow in spots from that, but overall a dusting more likely. And then into southeastern Massachusetts tomorrow morning, overnight tonight, some of that snow we talked about. Again, maybe a surprise 1 to 3 inches of snow out of that guy. So, very interesting stuff that, could happen over the next couple of days. And a lot of this is relatively new information. Obviously, we saw the mountain snow coming, but that Massachusetts snow kind of sneaking up a little bit on us. So it goes to show the science is always changing, and we're always, maybe not playing catch up, but adding some stuff to the forecast at the last second. So. Alrighty, now that we've talked about the next couple of days and those clipper systems, that mountain snow, that cold air, let's discuss what I'm sure many of you are here for, and that is this very powerful, impactful storm on the way that is really going to start cranking up within the next 3 or 4 days. So we're now at that point where we're beginning to feel much more confident in who's going to see what impacts. Now, we might not be exactly to the magnitude of those impacts, still have to iron out those details, but feeling more confident again on what places see what. So let's go ahead and dive into that a little bit. So we'll we'll start with our European model here and take a look at our 500 millibar height vorticity map. And we've been using this a lot, and over the past couple of days, the European has really stuck to its ground, and sure enough, here comes that storm system. So again, this is that trough I've been talking about. Anytime we see a trough or kind of this elongation of these isobars, as you'll notice here, they kind of get kinked a little bit. That is a trough, and that generally indicates a pocket of cold air as well as usually stormy conditions on one side of the trough and cold conditions on the other. So this trough will act very similar to just about every other trough we see. So again, going into as soon as really Saturday, that's when this trough begins to eject out of the Rocky Mountains and works into the southern Great Plains. And this is also when it's going to begin to strengthen. And with that, we'll have the threat of some severe weather on Saturday. But this trough from the European model digs very far south. And what I mean whenever I say dig is it's just getting, all the way, I guess what I'm trying to say is these bright colors here are getting very far south, okay? So when you hear people say this trough is really digging or it's not digging, I'll show you a great example here. The European model really digs this trough or brings this elongation of isobars quite far south, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. You'll notice these vibrant colors getting all the way down into southern Louisiana, and with that, it can tap off of Gulf moisture and energy as well as cool air from Canada. And all of those are going to combine to form a very strong storm system out of this trough come Saturday and Sunday afternoon, and eventually work that up through the Great Lakes, through the Northeast, and bringing with it high impacts. So that's the European model from overnight. Let's take a look at the GFS model, and there are some subtle differences, but overall they're pretty close in agreement. So GFS model, again, showing this trough, but the difference here is it's not digging or not getting as far south as the European. If you remember, the European had these kind of vibrant colors all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico here, while the GFS isn't quite getting it that far and only getting it about as far south as the Texarkana area. So that sounds like a very big difference, and it is in impacts, but we're still about 4 or 5 days away from this, and we're only talking about a couple hundred miles in difference north to south from this trough. So it's crazy how much these little details can change the forecast, and we'll show you how this placement of the trough changes the on-the-ground impacts here in just a moment. But either way, the story's the same at the end. That storm system begins to strengthen off of that trough and move up through the Great Lakes and through the Northeast through this weekend and through early next week. So some differences in the models overnight, but overall speaking, impacts still going to be about the same, just for different areas. So we'll go ahead and start with the European model and show these on-the-ground impacts. Again, this was that first model that showed this trough digging very far south. So let's take a look at the kind of precipitation map now. So going into Saturday afternoon, again, that trough ejecting out of the Rockies, that likely bringing the formation of some low pressure at the surface here on the right-hand side of that trough. Now with that, we're very likely going to have some precipitation begin to form, and also likely some severe weather here on the southern end of this for Saturday afternoon. And in a second, I'll show you the Storm Prediction Center already has a severe weather area outlined for this coming Saturday. Now, moving this ahead, the European model continues to strengthen that low pressure system overnight Saturday into early Sunday on your map here. And for that time period, we're seeing a plume of rain through much of the Ohio River Valley, the Tennessee River Valley, and likely still at this point, winds beginning to pick up and maybe even still some severe weather here on the southern side during the overnight Saturday into Sunday. Now, it's going into Sunday afternoon that I think that this storm system goes from a nuisance to a concern, really. So overnight Saturday, that rain picks up, but it's going into Sunday afternoon again. Look at this low pressure beginning to strengthen, getting down into the 980s. That's comparable to kind of the same millibars that we see with hurricanes sometimes. So obviously a very strong mid-latitude cyclone here, and over the afternoon period of Sunday, you'll notice the European model now cranks up that cold air big time on the backside of this storm system, and with that, we're getting a plume and a very big area of very heavy wet snow with the wind blowing on the backside of the storm system, while also dealing with a very strong squall line, maybe even some isolated supercells on the southern side of this thing. So a very dynamic storm with near blizzard conditions on one side and very strong storms with the potential to produce strong straight line winds and strong tornadoes on the other side. And if you're kind of in between these two areas, this kind of fuzzy zone, well, don't think you're out of the clear, because you might just be seeing rainfall, but the wind is going to be absolutely howling with a setup like this, and that will continue into the overnight of Sunday as this low continues to crank up, still bringing that squall line on one side with that heavy snow on the backside. Now, eventually, this continues to strengthen overnight Sunday, and I mean, seeing pressure values like this over the Great Lakes is nothing to scoff at. That's a very potent, strong storm system, and at this point, it's beginning to occlude. And what I mean by that is this very strong punch of cold air on the backside is now catching up to this very strong, warm advection on the front side. And once these two kind of meet, that's when a storm often hits its max intensity. And the reason for that being is anytime we have a cold front come through, generally the winds pick up. The reason for that is that pressure gradient force. It's that warm air and that cold air competing, trying to balance each other out. And whenever you get super cold with super warm right next to each other, that's very unstable conditions, and that's going to lead to a very large, expansive wind field. And that's only going to contribute to the problems that we have this weekend and into early next week. Now, eventually, on the Euro, this kind of clears out by the time we get into next Monday and Tuesday, and then we can kind of focus on whatever the next problem is. But we got to get there first. So that's the European solution, obviously a very worrisome one, and shows a very potent storm with many impacts this weekend. Now let's kind of dive in at the GFS and look at its solution. Same general idea. The storm system picks up into Saturday, bringing some afternoon severe weather to the Gulf states, and eventually continues to crank up in intensity, and honestly a pretty similar scenario to what we were looking at with the European model. Strong low pressure over the Great Lakes, bringing snow on the backside, as well as severe weather and strong winds on the front side, and then again that kind of fuzzy zone in between. So moving this ahead, again, very similar solution to the European, and still kind of clears us out by the time we get into early next week. So the GFS brings all the impacts a little bit further north and maybe a little weaker than the European just due to the trough placement, but overall they both still show a very potent storm system with potent impacts. And the first of those impacts are going to be severe weather. So Saturday, the Storm Prediction Center already has an area outlined for the shot of some severe weather through much of Arkansas, Louisiana, and eastern Texas here. So again, anytime we're 5 days out and the Storm Prediction Center is already ringing the bell saying, hey, we've got the ingredients here, that shows they are very confident, and this threat is likely only going to increase throughout the next couple of days. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see another area added for Sunday back out towards maybe the Carolinas and Georgia. So this isn't going to be a one-day event, and we could even see some severe weather up into the northeast as the squall line continues to strengthen as it's lifting off up to the north and east throughout this weekend. So, a very impactful storm for a lot of people. Now, one of the big ingredients to severe weather is CAPE, or thunderstorm fuel, if you will. So anywhere you see on your map, kind of really any colors pop up that's not just this normal white background, that is going to spell some trouble this weekend. So we'll move this ahead into our Friday afternoon. You'll notice we already have some CAPE values picking up, so maybe severe weather as early as Friday, but it's going into Saturday that threat really begins to pick up, and you'll notice some of these yellow and orange colors mixing in. That really is showing that we have a lot of instability at the surface. That combined with plenty of wind shear is going to cause real problems. Now going into Sunday afternoon, we still get another band of that instability, this time back towards the Carolinas, Georgia, and even Florida, so watching for some thunderstorms that way through that time period. And it couldn't be over there either. I mean, honestly, we're seeing in the models going into the overnight Sunday, maybe enough CAPE kind of sneaks up into the Chesapeake region and into the I-95 corridor that we could also be dealing with severe weather through that region going into overnight Sunday and potentially into early Monday. So that's one ingredient for severe weather is instability. The other ingredient that I know we won't be lacking is wind shear. So going into this weekend, again, here's that trough. Pretty easy to spot on your map, and look at these vibrant colors around that trough. Let me change my color. Give me 1 second here, sorry. Let's see, there we go, there's blue. So again, these vibrant colors on your map showing up. These are winds of above 120 miles an hour, not that far above the surface. So whenever we get these thunderstorms to move through, they're going to be able to feed off of that wind energy, likely begin to rotate, dive up or grab up some of that storm fuel at the surface, and we're going to have a very potent line of thunderstorms that bring wind gusts well in excess of 60 miles an hour. So very severe thunderstorms that will likely form off of this trough going into this weekend. All right, that's the severe weather side of this storm, and I know I'm talking a lot here and getting a lot of information out, but again, there's just a lot of information that needs to be brought with this video. So again, that's severe weather. Now let's take a look at the snowy side of this. The Weather Prediction Center has already outlined their thought process on who is likely to see the most snow out of this storm system, and I agree with them quite well here. We have an area kind of up here through the Great Lakes region and back kind of towards sections of Missouri and Illinois that I think has the best shot at seeing some of this snow, especially the state of Michigan. If you're watching from Michigan, specifically probably the western side of Michigan and up into the UP, we're really concerned for some big time snow and wind up into that area as we go through this weekend and the storm system really cranks up. So again, if you're watching in the Midwest, especially a state like Michigan, while everyone else is dealing with the severe weather, you're not off the hook. You're getting some big-time snow likely out of this storm system. So our overnight Euro ensemble members showing the best shot at seeing an inch of snow out of this storm system. Well, again, it's kind of in this same general area from Missouri up through Wisconsin and into Michigan, having the best shot at seeing snow out of this storm system. And again, especially kind of up here into this stretch from Michigan and back down towards sections of Illinois and Wisconsin, having the greatest shot at seeing some accumulating snowfall out of this storm system, and those chances even going up into sections of the Northeast early next week, as the backside of this could bring in some big time lake effect snow as well. Now, as for our GFS ensemble members, a generally similar picture with, again, those greatest chances being in the same general place, maybe a little further to the west here, more into Wisconsin and Iowa, but still showing the same general idea that somebody up into the Great Lakes region is going to get a lot of snow and a lot of wind at the same time out of this storm system as it cranks away. And again, those chances for snow even into the Northeast on the backside, as we could get enough moisture left over that we get some wintry temperatures, I guess, below average temperatures to overlap with that moisture, bringing some snow into that part of the country as well. But we'll still need a couple days to iron out exact totals, but again, we're getting a better understanding of who exactly is going to see that winter weather through this weekend. So the last thing I want to talk to you about here is wind gusts, and this is something I'm very concerned about for everybody because we could see some pretty big time power outages. This is, a threat that's really shaping up to be quite serious. So going into this coming Saturday, you'll notice already a pretty gusty day, and I will mention these are max wind gusts, so don't expect these gusts throughout the day, but winds getting as high as this throughout the day Saturday, very possible. Widespread gusts up into the 30s, which, we can handle that on Saturday, but it's going into overnight as that storm system cranks up and into actually, I'm sorry, let me back this up a little bit. This is Sunday, actually. This is Sunday afternoon. It's going into Sunday night and into early Monday that those winds really become a concern. Through the Great Lakes, widespread winds getting up well into tropical storm strength and maybe even hurricane force strength over the lakes themselves. And as for the Northeast, my oh my, we're going to get a very strong flow on the eastern side of this trough out of the Atlantic, and that is going to bring very strong winds, potentially gusting to hurricane force in places like New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, really right up the Hudson River Bay here. So very worried about that. That could also lead to some coastal flooding. And going further into the overnight, again, widespread areas getting near hurricane gusts through the early morning hours of Monday and staying breezy throughout the afternoon Monday, as then lake effect snow potentially cranks up on the backside of the system before we finally clear out going into our Tuesday. So again, a very impactful storm system with all sorts of things, severe weather, snow, and a lot of very gusty winds for a lot of folks. So again, I'm becoming very concerned for the chance of power outages, down trees, coastal flooding in the Northeast, big snow in the Midwest, and severe weather into the Gulf Coast states. So, a little bit of everything here to digest. And by the time we hit probably Thursday's video, I imagine is going to be quite long as we really break this down even more, and we have more in-depth snow totals, exact wind gusts, who exactly is going to see the severe weather, and an even better idea on the timing of this. But nonetheless, the past 24 hours, we've gotten a lot better idea of what is on the way. So again, this video is a bit of a gauntlet. I do apologize if I started kind of talking crazy, but I do have a class to get to relatively soon and a test to take. So I've got a very long day ahead of me, and I had to get this video out before, I had to leave the house. So again, I appreciate that. And again, let me know what you're seeing out there. Let me know what you're expecting in your area as the storm continues to get closer. And let me know what you're doing to prepare. Maybe kind of bringing some of the lawn furniture in, or cutting some of those loose limbs that might be a problem while we have a nicer stretch of weather over the next couple of days. But again, have a great rest of your Tuesday out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.